start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference.
All right, guys. So let's settle down some. We need you to sing this song with us. Listen up, listen up.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I.
Shalom, shalom unto all of our listeners and viewers, wheresoever you are. We rise and we give thanks unto Elohim for yet another opportunity that He has granted unto us to be able to be alive and be able to propagate His precious, His precious message. We are extremely humbled by the mercy that Elohim has shown unto us today, because to be able to be alive in this day and age in Babylon and still keep a bit of your sanity, it is not very easy. Yet by the mercies of Yah, we are able to still try. And one of the things that is keeping us anchored in this crazy Babylonian world are the texts that He has left for us, meaning the inspired scriptures, which we call the Bible. In our modern day and age, if you were to remove the Bible from this world, I think we would really go into a deep, dark hole, Because within these sacred texts are found the tenets that keep us grounded and that still keep us sane. So we are extremely grateful unto Elohim that, having foreseen the future, having foreseen the dark times that would come, spiritually speaking, where technology and advancement of the world would increase, nevertheless, righteousness, truth, judgment, and mercy would decrease. He did not leave us without a witness, but he made sure that he left unto us the written text. And apart from the written text that he left for us, he was also so merciful to call unto himself a particular type of men, who he then gave the title of prophets, that they, in the moments of darkness, may be able to act as a beacon of light and as a representative of the presence of Elohim. So, beginning from Moses, we are extremely grateful unto Elohim that he left unto us the prophet Moses, the prophet Isaiah, the prophet Jeremiah, and all the prophets of old. And in the dispensation of the Messiah, he shewed unto us the perfect will of Elohim by sending unto us his only begotten Son, who, being come in the flesh, was able to show unto us that even though you are living in a crazy world, if one abides by the rule of the Spirit, he will be able to make it. And this is our struggle, our daily struggle, finding yourself within a physical vessel and yet trying to appease a spiritual Elohim. So in the light of this struggle, we have developed a theme called the human character, which we have been dealing with for some weeks now. And today we will zoom in the topic, how is this human character formed? By touch. In other words, what impact does touching or the sensitivity of this outer skin play in the formation of the human character? So, because of time, let us then begin. Our next slide, please.
All right, so reading from the preface, as you can see, for today's lesson, we will look at how the sense of touch directly impacts your behavior and character. Due to the fact that we humans have a natural inclination and need of touch, this is also the area where most of mankind commits sin. Unless one is made aware of this dilemma, many souls will drown in an endless ocean fighting an inner battle.
Exactly that. There is a conundrum and there is a dilemma when it comes to this topic of how the human character is formed by the physical touch, because you will see that being part of the five senses, it is natural to have a need of touching. It is natural to have a need of that bonding with other fellow human beings. However, we are living in a world where, by reason of the many inventions of mankind, this sense of touch, instead of being used, has become abused. And because of that, many people find themselves in a vicious cycle. Because how do you fight nature itself? How do you fight your own natural inclinations and tendencies? And because of that, you will see that because of this sense of touch, many sins are being committed. And because of this sense of touch, many sins will keep on getting committed. And unless one becomes aware, of how this actually plays a role in your discipline, it will become very difficult to overcome the challenge. So by highlighting this topic today, we hope that at least some understanding and insight will be given. So, table of content, please.
We'll first look at the place of the body in the order of creation after the fall. We'll look at the question, what is the sense of touch? And we'll also look at the question, how does touch impact our behavior? We'll look at the great thou shalt not touch commandments, the case of sexual immorality. We'll look at the role of Azazel, the deceiver. We'll look at the remedy, and then we'll conclude.
So some interesting, I think, point of views. We'll try to look at from different angles. And then we will reach our climax and conclude. So, we use the analogy of the tree in character building. And in Proverbs 23:7, it reads like,
For as he thinks in his heart, so is he.
Therefore, a man is literally
what he thinks,
his character,
being the sum total of all his thoughts.
And then on the right, you see the tree, and it has different stages of progression. Your thoughts then become your actions, which then become your habits, which then become your character, and your character leads you to your destiny. So you wrote down in the tree of progression,
your action is the actual realization of your thoughts.
And this is done
by the body.
So therefore, we will look at certain actions that play a role, whilst also keeping in mind all the underlying principles that play a role in what you actually actualize or do with your body. So, the Genesis
5 verse 23.
This is basically not Genesis 5. If I'm correct, this is Thessalonians. I didn't write it down.
Oh yeah.
First Thessalonians 5:23. It says, and the very
Elohim of peace separate you wholly, so that your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Master Yahushua the Messiah.
So here Shaul is pleading. And he's praying, understanding the mystery of the totality of mankind. He says, may the very Elohim of peace separate you wholly, meaning putting you apart, so that your entire spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Master, Yahushua HaMashiach. So he's pointing out the three elements that makes a human being. And you see on the picture on the right, the total human being and all the elements that consists of him. Spirit, soul, body. Spirit we dealt with. Soul, your personality, your mind, what you think, your emotions, how you feel, your will. And then the body, which is nothing else but a dwelling, a container. And in it is found your ability to speech. In it is found your five senses, and through it you perform action, right? So then Genesis 6:3, Yah makes a devastating statement. He says, and Yah said,
my spirit shall not always strive with men,
for that he's also
flesh,
yet his days
shall be 120 years.
So this deplorable statement basically meant that Elohim lamented the fact that even though man was supposed to be a being consisting of three elements, Elohim came to the realization that instead of man understanding that he's not only flesh, but his spirit, soul, living in a body, I've come to realize that man has become too carnal. In other words, man has begun to put too much emphasis on just one part of his being. And because of that, I have decided that my spirit shall no longer dwell with men, for that he has become too carnal. But we first have to understand the role of the body in the order of creation, so that we may further appreciate this statement made by Elohim And so that we may further down the line appreciate how the human character is formed by the sense of touch, which is found on the level of the body. So, the very curse of this flesh that you and I both carry, possess, and dwell in. Genesis 3 verse 3, and it says,
But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden,
Elohim said,
ye shall not eat of it,
neither will ye
touch it,
lest ye
die.
So you see, the very first commandment Elohim gave, he told them, thou shalt not touch. Thou shalt not come close to. Thou will not come close, approach, touch this tree. However, Genesis 3 and 6, and when the woman
Saw
that the tree
was good for food
and that it was pleasant
to the eyes,
and a tree to be desired,
to make one wise,
she took
of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
and then the eyes
Of them both were opened,
and they knew.
that they were naked.
So by reason of touching, this same touching had a direct impact on the character of Adam and Eve. When it says, and the eyes of them both were open, what it simply means is they became educated with regards to what touching does. So touching basically opened their eyes, or in other words, it changed them. The opening of eyes means they have been indoctrinated. Their state of mind, their soul has been impacted. And all of this happened by reason of touch. Now, because of something, I'm not yet able to disclose what this eating of the tree means. That in itself is a different topic for maybe another day when we will deal with serpent seed and stuff. But for now, we will just keep it at face level, meaning that there was an object that was found in the Garden of Eden, which Elohim commanded the people, saying, don't touch. However, by reason of disobedience, Adam and Eve touched. And as they touched, the Bible says their eyes were opened, meaning their character was changed. Their state of mind, their being was transformed. And the interesting thing about this is that you will see that based on the tree of progression, first something must happen within your mind before your body follows suit and carries out what the mind is saying. And the way the Bible breaks it down here, it says, and when the woman first saw, so the woman was first enticed. She first saw, and as she saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes. Now, how does one know that something is pleasant to the eyes before eating? It means she was first premeditating upon it. It was pleasant in her mind. First the eyes of the mind must be enlightened before your actual eyes can enjoy it, as we might say. Just like I think it was Brother Jeff who dealt with the topic of, was it taste or eating? And he told you that eating is not just literal what you put inside of your food, but what you think of is also a manner of food. Your mind also eats. Your mind eats good things or it eats bad things. So the woman was enticed by what she saw, and it was pleasant to the eyes. And when she accepted it with her mind, then her body follows suit. And so they came close, they touched this tree, and both of their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And having broken the commandment of Elohim, Elohim then came unto Adam, and he said,
Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake.
Cursed is the
Ground for thy sake.
in sorrow shalt thou
Eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee.
and thou shalt eat.
The herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
So you see, Elohim then in his infinite wisdom understood that if he was to curse the spirit or the soul of man, then there was no redemption anymore. Because the soul of man, the spirit of man are eternal. But being wise, he understood that because I made man a three-parted being, I will now, in order to be able to save him, I will simply curse the outer layer. So he then cursed the ground for his sake. He understanding that because man was made from the dust or from the ground, if I curse the ground, I'll be able to partially also impose my punishment on mankind, but it will not be to the point where his soul can no longer be saved. So based upon this statement, when Elohim cursed the ground, immediately then the ground was made subject to weakness. Your body then has been made subject to weakness. So then you will see that when Elohim then begins to say, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he's also flesh. That statement that he made in Genesis 6 is nothing else but a continuation of the judgment that he imposed on mankind in Genesis 3. That is all that it means. Because he knew he has cursed the ground, he said, I will have no longer many dealings with mankind that are living in the flesh, that are being too carnal. However, I will make sure that I cleave to the spirit side of men. That is all that he was saying. So to further appreciate that one, we go to the next slide. And then you see, are we there?
Yeah.
So then you see these silhouettes. You see on the left, you see man in his perfect state. On the right, you see man, but only the body. In the middle, you see the soul. And on the total right, you see the spirit. And all these elements is what consists or what makes mankind. That's why Shaul said that Elohim may sanctify you, your body, your soul, and your spirit. However, in that Genesis 3, when Elohim pronounced judgment upon mankind, mankind no longer was a complete, perfect being. What Elohim then did was, he spiritually was able to separate the facets of mankind. He separated the body, the soul, and the spirit. So then, read the Testament of Asher, chapter 1 from verse 3, and read what it says.
2 ways had Elohim given to the sons of men,
Now there are 2 ways that Elohim gave to the sons of men,
and 2 inclinations,
and he gave them 2 tendencies, 2 inclinations,
and 2 kinds of actions,
Uh-huh.
and 2 modes of actions,
and 2.
issues.
Therefore, all things
Are by twos, one over against the other. For there are 2 ways of good and evil, and where these are the 2 inclinations in our breast, discriminating them.
Therefore, if the soul,
Take pleasure in the good
so you see
inclination,
from the picture, the soul is in the middle, and then the body is left, the spirit is right. And it says, therefore, if the soul takes pleasure,
in the good inclination,
all its actions,
are in righteousness.
and if it sin
It straightway repents,
for having its thoughts
set upon righteousness,
and casting away.
wickedness.
So if the soul finds its delight in good things, what that simply means is, if the soul inclines to the ladder, actually, go to nature. So if the soul then inclines to the good things, it basically means the soul is clinging unto the spirit side. then you will see that it will do good things. But if the soul inclines to the evil inclinations, all that it simply means is the soul is then carnal. It is too much doing the things of the body. And when that happens, it is clinging onto the evil side. So when Elohim then said, my spirit will not strive with men, what he was saying is that I have noticed that men, his thoughts are always evil. Therefore, he is too carnal. However, me, Elohim, I am on the spirit side of things. And I see that men's inclinations is not too much towards me. That is all that Esdr is explaining. But continue reading it on.
And if it sin, the righteous soul, it straightway repents, for having its thoughts set upon righteousness and casting away wickedness, it straightway overthrows the evil and uproots the sin. But if it incline to the evil inclination,
Yes.
all its actions are in wickedness, and it drives away the good and cleaves to the evil
And is ruled.
by Belial.
Exactly. So what you then see here is that Elohim inspires men through the spirit, and therefore the Bible says, be therefore spiritual. But however, you see that Belial, or the devil, his inclination is more towards your body. Why is that so? Because Elohim, from his order of things, he rejected the body so that he may take the spirit. So the enemy then took possession of the body. And with possession of the body, all that I'm saying is that you will see that the natural tendencies of your body will always be towards evil. But the natural inclination of the spirit will always be towards righteousness. Because on the left side is Belial, and on the right side is Elohim, and both of them are pulling, seeking for your interest. That is all that it is saying. So in the order of creation, the body has a weak role, meaning the body is the last in the order of creation. Spirit first, then soul, then body. It is important to understand this because now we are continuing. The next slide. The very condition of our daily battle, as we said during our introduction.
Second Esdr 7 from verse 50 and 7.
It says, then the angel answered me
And said, this is the condition of the battle, which man that is born upon the earth shall fight, that if he be overcome, he shall suffer as thou hast said. But if he get the victory, he shall receive the thing that I say. Galatians 5 verse 17. For the flesh lusted against the spirit.
So what the angel just told Esdras, what the angel taught Asher, right? Now Shaul is saying the same thing. He's saying, for the flesh
Lusted against the spirit.
is fighting against the spirit.
And the spirit against the flesh.
And the spirit also is fighting against the flesh.
And these are contrary the one to the other.
And these are in direct opposition. They are diametrically opposed, one versus another.
So that ye cannot do the things that ye would.
So that you now are found in a dilemma. And that is the dilemma that all of us deal with. That is the fight. That is the condition of the battle that all of us deal with. Because the funny thing is, all these things are happening within you. All these things are happening within you. Body is pushing, spirit is pushing, soul is in the middle, and it has to decide. And it has to decide. And then verse 18 he says, but if ye be led
Of the spirit
ye are not
under the law
now the works of the flesh,
are manifest.
which are these.
Adultery,
Now pay attention. The works of the flesh, the works of this body are these: adultery,
fornication,
which is a physical act. Adultery, you do that with your body. Fornication, which is in this case a physical act, you do it with your body.
uncleanness,
Uncleanness, which is also things that are done with the body.
lustfulness,
Lustfulness is that which is done with the mind. But due to lustfulness, uncleanness comes about, fornication comes about, adultery comes about. Now, these other,
Idolatry.
verse 20, are just some of the things, but we will look at adultery, fornication, uncleanness, because you see that the works of the flesh are these. All the works of the flesh are the things that are done through this body, are the things that are done through this sense, if you may call it like that, right? And then envyings, murders, drunkenness, reveling, all these things are done through the body. All these things are the things that the body is naturally inclined to, right? So that is the dilemma that we are facing. And then you see two strong entities that are fighting within you. And there was a song by a brother, and he was singing a song, and he said, in a house there were two dogs fighting. There was one black dog and there was one white dog. And as they were fighting and fighting and fighting, it was the dog that was fed the most who would always win the battle. It was a preacher man who once said that in a song. And then when the people asked him, what do you mean by that song? He said, the two dogs that you hear in the song is your spirit and it is your body or your flesh. And the food that we are speaking about is the things that you feed it. If you feed the flesh will win. And if you feed the spirit will win. So the one that gets fed the most is the one that will win the battle. It is exactly as with your soul. Because your soul is the one that is supposed to make the decisions. You have to feed your soul with the right things so that it may choose the right things. And the dilemma that we are facing is that many of us are more inclined to the physical things. And there is an underlying natural reason for why that is so. So let's go to the next slide. So you wrote down, we interact with the outer world
through our five senses.
So the question that I would like to ask before we continue is, all of us, we speak of God, 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 God. How many of us have seen God?
None.
How many of us have seen God? How many? How many have seen him? We have not seen him. Sometimes you dream and you see forms. Sometimes you hear voices. Sometimes you feel with the inner man, but you have not seen him. The spirit world, where we have to find our inclination to, is hid from us with a veil. However, how many of us have seen the outer world?
All of us.
All of us. We see it every day. We interact with the outer world through our five senses. Through our five senses, we interact with the outer world. And because of the fact that we interact with the outer world through our five senses, we are quickly inclined to be physical than to be spiritual. Because with the five senses, with the touch, with the sight, with the hearing, with the smell, and with the taste, which is all found within the body, you see that it is natural that if you're not trained, to let the body have the upper hand. So I wrote down beneath, all these five senses are wrapped up
within the human body,
with the skin
being the biggest organ on the body.
So now we are going more into touch. So all these five senses, your hearing, your sight, your taste, it is all wrapped around, or it is all found on the outer layer in the human body, with the skin being the biggest organ on your body. So the human skin, next slide.
What is the largest organ? To date, the skin is considered to be the largest organ. It covers your whole body and makes up about 16% of your overall body mass. Your skin is approximately 2 millimeters thick. The functions of your skin is to protect your body from environmental stressors like germs, pollution, radiation from the sun, and more. And regulate your body temperature, receive sensory information, store water, fat, and vitamin D.
Now, the most important thing that we will focus on today is receive sensory information. So your skin receives sensory information that then directly is transferred to the mind, to the soul, and then character is formed. It is through your skin that you receive sensory information. So it is, your body is the interface that connects to this world, but not only does it connect to this world, your body is also a door through which the things of this outer world enters and goes into your inner world. Your body is that bridge. Your body is that antenna. So it receives sensory information and it goes in. Just like we read, and it says, and when Eve saw that the tree was good, she saw, and as she saw it and she touched it, her body received sensory information and it entered into her soul. And it says her eyes were opened, meaning her character was changed. So we should not and we cannot underestimate this sense of touch, this body that we are living with. Right? So let's continue. The very impact of touching.
All warm-blooded animals are born with an innate need to be touched and stroked affectionately. There is an extensive research going back decades that shows how critical touch is to the survival of both animals and humans. A 1976 study linked the handling of or gentle touching of mammals early in life to increased weight gain, activity, and resilience under stress. Touch for a human baby serves both physical and emotional functions. Human babies actually die when there is a lack of touch. In the 19th century, most institutionalized infants in the United States died of marasmus, or wasting away. Institutions surveyed in the 1915 reported that a majority of infants under the age of 2 had died due to failure to thrive related to the lack of touch and affection. Prescott found that deprivation of touch and movement contributed to later emotional problems. He also found that in cultures where physical affection towards infants is high, there are low levels of adult aggression. But in cultures where there is less affectionate touch, there are increased incidents of adult aggression. Society has rules about whom we can touch, where, and when. Touch can be appropriate and safe, or inappropriate and unsafe. The best way to provide comfort is via touch, especially when someone needs consoling. The language of touch can deeply communicate our feelings and inspire connection.
So now you see, we are slowly delving into the issue. Touching is a basic need. It is a basic need. Meaning every person has a need to be touched. From infancy on until the very moment that you die, there is that need. I know many of you even remember that passage of the great King David. The guy was about to die. David was about to die. He was sick. And all the wise men were there, the doctors were there, the seers that pierced through realms were there. And there was no one who could help him. There was no one who can help him. And then one heard a whisper that every healing that mankind find is here on this earth. Just go and find David, a young damsel whose body is hot, whose blood is flowing, and bring the damsel to David and let her sleep close to him. And then the touch to touch, skin to skin, will heal the king. FIFO. So it will heal the king. So you see, so don't try to be too spiritual and it won't work. It is a necessary thing. From baby to old to infant, it is needed. It has been proven. When someone is very upset, just the giving of a hug, it releases things in your brain. It makes someone feel comforted. It has been proven that by holding someone's hand that you care for, it releases certain things. So that's why you will see sometimes Lamar. So you will see that we have dealt from all the research that is shown, it is telling you the impact of touch, how it is needed. Right? However, it is a two-edged sword. Touching can be appropriate and safe, or inappropriate and unsafe. Many of us, for example, you see, sometimes there is a difference between someone that has been raised by his mother and someone that has not been raised by his mother. With many animals, the moment that they are born, if you take them away from their mother, they die. Even though you take them away from their mother, even though you give them food, drink, water, everything, still the chances and probability that they survive is very low. Because it's not just a matter of food and drink, it is also the skin-to-skin touch from the mother to the baby that helps the child live. So you'll see many people born without mother. You'll see some of them, they will be born, and even though they survived, they become psychopaths. Because they didn't develop that sense of touch that was needed for them to have a good character. So because of that lack of love, through the touching, you'll see some people being born and they are psychos. They are born and they have no emotions. They are born and they are traumatized. Why? Because through the infant stages, that level of touch that was needed to form them was lacking. It was lacking. It was lacking. And science will prove it to you time and time and time and time again. Right? So no one is saying don't. I encourage in the right circumstances. In the right circumstances. I do encourage the touching in the right circumstances. You have your brother, you have your sister. Sometimes a hug is needed. Especially when they are very young. Sometimes it is needed. You have a mother. It is normal, it is needed. But you especially see, especially maybe with us Africans and stuff, it's as if it is a taboo or something. It's as if it is a taboo or something. You don't want to hug your own mother. You're like, no, man. You don't want to hug your own mother. So if you don't hug you don't want to hug your own mother, but you hug women. Women you hug. Very strange phenomenons. But in the right circumstances, after two, you have your niece, you have your daughter, you have your hug them, be with them. It helps. And sometimes you also need the hug. Right? So in the right circumstances, it is very healthy. So the next slide, social touch experience in different contexts.
Want me to read the boxes or?
So yeah, it starts from the upper left. It says the sensory qualities of touch.
It says force, velocity.
Meaning, through touch, you can feel the force. Meaning, if someone squeezes you, you feel the force. Velocity is the speed. When someone does this very quick or slow, through your sensory qualities, you feel, hey, you're pressing too hard or you're going too quick. All that you feel to the touch. What you also feel is the temperature. Through your skin, you are able to sense temperature. People that have low, white blood cells, they are quickly prone to be very cold. People that have regular blood cells, you will see that they don't really feel the cold as often. So basically, through your skin alone, without even sometimes touching someone, this body of yours is always operating. So through your skin, you are able to sense temperature. And people sometimes think that touching only has to do with you have to touch someone. No, you're also, that's why I said this body is an interface with this world, but also with the spiritual world. So through this body, you can also feel, maybe that's a topic, I think Jeff will then deal with that, but through this body, you can also feel the temperature. You can feel people's vibes. That's why there are some people, they will be like, ik vibe niet met deze man. Of ik voel zijn energie, ik voel hem niet. Through the body, you feel the temperature, you feel someone's vibe. Right? You can also, through the body, feel the softness. So you can feel if an object is hard or a subject is soft. All of that is the sensory qualities of touch. But then the arrow downstairs, it says the situational factors.
You can target a person's attentiveness to touch.
So through touching someone, you can draw someone's attention.
It says also multi-modal environment.
So through the sense of touching, as I said, not only can you sense someone's touch, but all these things that we just mentioned, sometimes your body can feel it simultaneously. So your body is able to have a multi-dimensional sense of the environment through the body. Some people are sharper than others. Some people are sharper than others in the sense of like, sometimes you're sleeping, and there are some people that when they're sleeping, you only need to move. If you're sleeping next to someone, just a small movement and it can awaken them. Whilst others are like, you can jump, you can shout. When they're asleep, they don't feel anything, right? So many people are different in that sense. And then we go to the toucher's characteristics.
It says group membership, facial expression, and physical attractiveness.
So the characteristic of the one touching, through it you can determine the physical attractiveness, you can determine someone's facial expressions, or someone's group membership, meaning if there are many people or not. And then we go downstairs, target person's personality traits and life history.
It says psychiatric disorders or traumatic life events.
What this simply means is that by reason of this touching, the way someone will behave will depend on the psychiatric disorders or the traumatic life events, which one will impact the way you behave towards touch, but at the same time also, these things are formed by touching. So through touching, someone can develop psychiatric disorder. through touching, or let me rather say, through touching or through the lack of touching. The lack of touching I already explained. You're a child, for example, never been touched, hugged by your mother or someone. You will grow up and you will become insensitive to that. However, you can also be someone, you were raped or you were touched badly by someone when you were an infant. So when that something happens, you develop psychiatric disorders or traumatic life events. So you see how touching is a two-edged sword, right? So on the three things that we just dealt with on the left, then we go to the middle, the immediate responses to social touch in target persons. Depending on your mental state, you can react effectively, so you have an effective response. However, and then we have the behavioral response, perceptual and neural processing of touch. So your response to how you behave to touching will depend on the things we just mentioned before. The things we just mentioned before will trigger either a positive response or a negative response. So in this case, touching is neutral. It really depends on where you're coming from. But then we go to the right, the long-term effects of social touch in target persons.
Mental and physical health, plasticity of neural networks.
So the plasticity of neural networks simply has to do with, we call that the muscle memory. So we call that muscle memory because it has been proven even that people, for example, that engage more with nature, people that engage more with nature, they have healthier brains. People that go to the gym, for example, it has been proven that exercising boosts the brain. It boosts your memory, it boosts your blood flow, and it's just overall more healthier to exercise because then you are busy touching or you're busy exercising. You're stimulating. So you're busy stimulating the brain by reason of touching, right? So it increases the plasticity of neural networks, but it also has a mental and it also adds to your mental and physical health. But I should also say it also adds to your mental and physical disorder. It can go both ways. So that is a social touch experience in many different contexts. It's a very interesting read. The link is downstairs if you want to go through it. But then we are continuing, right? Having explained all these things, let's now go to the Tao. Is this the right slide? Is that the right slide? I don't think that is the right slide. Thou shalt not hoort later te komen. So instead of going there, wacht even. What is the order of things here? No. No. No, okay, Randy. Skip the Daus. We komen daar later op. Now go to the impact of sex on the brain. We are still dealing with touch. Now, having explained all these things, go to the impact of sex on the brain.
Yes? So during sexual activity, a flood of feel-good hormones are released throughout our bodies, lightening up the reward centers in our brain. Dopamine, produced by the hypothalamus, is a particularly well-publicized player in the brain's reward pathway. It's released when we do things that feel good to us. During sex, dopamine and a related hormone, neuroperipherin, are released during attraction. These chemicals make us giddy, energetic, and euphoric. Like dopamine, oxytocin is produced by the hypothalamus and released in large quantities during sex, breastfeeding, and childbirth. This may seem like a very strange assortment of activities, not all of which are necessarily enjoyable, but a common factor here is that all of these events are precursors to bonding.
So what he's basically saying, and now we are continuing with how does touching, in this case, sex, for example, how does that impact you or your character? It literally says that when one engages in coitus or intercourse, the body releases dopamine and other feel-good hormones. The same thing that is released when some people eat chocolate, the same thing that is released when some people eat fast food, the same thing that is released when people eat sugar. So dopamine is the most addictive chemical your body and your brain can release. And when it comes to sex, it releases a large amount of dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical in your brain. So the acting of this, the performing of this act makes one feel good, right? And because of that, you'll see that it is something that is really praised in this world. Sex is highly appreciated in this world. It is highly sold in this world. Just like sugar is sold. Just like fast food is sold. Sex is highly sold in this world. So you will see commercials, for example, a car commercial, and they will put half-naked women. Perfume commercial. Sometimes you look at commercials, you're like, what is the relationship within the product that they're selling and the woman that we're seeing there? You think there's no relationship. They know there's a relationship because they are trying to associate dopamine with their product. And they know the quickest way to release dopamine in a man's brain is by putting a naked woman. No matter how holy or sanctified or powerful you are, if they put a naked woman and your eyes see them, there is no body that will not respond. Maybe if you are a Batman, your body will not respond. But if you're acting and if your body and if your brain and everything is normal, you will feel a stimuli. Right? And why does one feel this stimuli? Now let's go to the dilemma of sexual immorality. Next slide.
Reading from the Testament of Reuben.
And now hear me.
Now hear me, my children, what things I saw concerning the 7 spirits of deceit when I repented. 7 spirits, therefore, are appointed against man. And they are the leaders in the works of youth. And 7 other spirits are given to him at his creation.
So remove spirit and just call it natures. There are 7 spirits that work against men. Or
and
7
other
natures.
natures are given to him at his creation.
And at the same time, there are also 7 other natures that are given unto him from the moment that he's formed.
That through them should be done every work of man.
That through these natures, man will be able to do everything that he needs on this earth. Read.
The first is the nature of life.
The very first nature Elohim gave you is life. Because without life, you cannot live.
With which the constitution of man is created. The second is the sense of sight.
The second is the ability to see.
With which ariseth desire.
Which or through which desire arises. Now this seeing is not just the seeing with the eye. It is also the discernment of the mind.
The third is the sense of hearing, with which cometh teaching.
The third is the sense of hearing, through which comes understanding.
The fourth is the sense of smell, with which tastes are given.
Read.
To draw air and breath. The fifth is the power of speech, with which cometh knowledge. The sixth is the sense of taste, with which cometh the eating of meats and drink. And by it strength is produced. For in food is the foundation of strength.
And now it comes. The seventh
is the power of procreation and sexual intercourse,
with which
through love of pleasure sins enter in.
Wherefore it is the last
in the order of creation,
and the first
in that of youth,
because it is filled
with ignorance,
and leadeth the youth
as a blind man to a pit,
and as a beast
to a precipice.
So you see, he's telling you that from the natures through which Elohim created mankind, he said, the very last nature I gave him was that of procreation and sexual intercourse. Meaning, it is part of your very being. However, he says, with which, now comes the issue, through love of pleasure,
Sins enter in.
so the power of procreation and sexual intercourse in itself is not a problem. But he says, with which, through love of pleasure, sins enter in. Wherefore, it is the very last in the order of creation, and the first in that of youth. So when you are young, to you, the very last that Elohim created, for you it is first. So you see young people very inclined to be sexually driven. Very inclined to be sexually driven. Elohim is identifying that here. And he's saying, because it is filled with ignorance,
And leads the youth as a blind man to a pit, and as a beast to a precipice.
now chapter 3 from 1, it says, beside all these,
There is an eighth spirit of sleep,
with which,
is brought about the trance of nature and the image of death.
with these spirits,
Are mingled the spirits of error.
now look at this. First, he showed you the 7 good spirits. So the spirit of procreation and sexual intercourse, Elohim classifies it as one of the 7 natural spirits he gave you, and he still calls it a good spirit. But then he tells you of the 7 other spirits that are evil, and he says in the order of things, he says, what was the last in the good spirits, in the row of the evil spirit, this is first the spirit of fornication.
Is seated in the nature and in the senses.
The second, the spirit of.
Insatiableness.
So he's telling you, the spirit of fornication is seated in the nature and in the senses. What does that mean?
It's part of you.
It means it's natural. It is natural. It is natural. Because that first spirit in the line of evil spirits and that good spirit, and that last spirit in the line of good spirits, it is the same. However, depending on your mindset, that which was supposed to be natural will become evil. Because if you look at the very act of fornication and the act of procreation, the act is the same. But the conditions surrounding the act is what makes one thing good and what makes the other thing evil. So the dilemma of sexual immorality is that it is in you. The urge to have sex, to procreate, it is in you. Because that is the reason why the dopamine is released in your brain. Because your brain cannot just release dopamine. Your brain follows the natural laws of creation, how Elohim made things. If you would not enjoy it, then you wouldn't do it. But because Elohim made it as a form of a reward system in the right circumstances, that is why the brain is simply just doing what Elohim commanded it. But the problem is that the way we are going about the subject of sex is where the issue then comes. Right? So I wrote down the next slide, the dilemma of sexual immorality. I wrote down the problem with our society
is that we have taken the natural use of things, and instead of using it normally, we now abuse it to our own detriment.
Understand that very well. Our problem is not sex in itself. Our problem is not sexual immorality in itself. The problem with our society is that we have taken the natural use of things, and instead of using it normally, we now abuse it to our own detriment. Now, the Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verse 4.
O daughters of Jerusalem,
Listen to what he says. He says, O daughters of Jerusalem,
I adjure you,
I plead with you
do not arouse or awaken love
until the time
is right.
That is the issue. He's telling you, don't awaken love. Do not awaken some sentiments within you before it's time. Right? And in Proverbs 6:27,
Can a man take fire in his bosom?
now he's asking you, the same author, he's saying, is it possible for you to take fire and put it upon your chest
And his clothes not be burned?
and not burn your clothes?
Can one go upon hot coals
Can you walk upon hot coals
and his feet not be burned?
barefooted and not burn your feet? That is the question. If we take it in our time, can you behold a naked woman and not feel anything? That's the question. Can a lady behold a naked man and not feel anything? And even though I know with women is different, men is sensory, women is hearing. But the question simply what he's saying is, can you swim in a pool and not be wet? All these questions are rhetorical. Because the answer is, no, you can't. You can't. So he's saying, people, daughters of Jerusalem, men of Jerusalem, do not awaken passion before it's time. Because basically, that is all that fornication is. Passion awoken before its time. So I wrote down, case and point, the many expressions of sexual immorality. 1, fornication. And I wrote down, it is the unlawful
Act of having intercourse with a single man or woman without going through the law of concubinage or marriage.
Yeah. So I have to swim around the concubine subject because I do not have leave to speak of that. So we will just swim around the topic of concubine. I don't know when that will be dealt with, but when that will be dealt with, it will change many lives. And personally, I hope that day never comes because it's not necessary. But when we will deal with, when someone will deal with that topic, then he can explain. So I wrote it down there because it's the truth. However, so fornication is the unlawful act of having intercourse with a single man or woman without going through the law of concubinage or marriage. Right? Because if you look at the dictionary on the right, the Strong's, when it speaks about fornication, it uses the word porneia. And porneia can mean many things. It can either mean illicit sexual intercourse, which can be adultery,
fornication,
homosexuality,
lesbianism,
intercourse with animals, B, sexual intercourse with close relatives, C, sexual intercourse with a divorced man or woman. It can also mean the worship of idols. It can be the defilement. So you see, when we are speaking about fornication, first you have to ask yourself, be specific. What are we speaking of? In the context of now, I'm not talking about adultery. I'm not talking about homosexuality, bestiality. I'm not talking about that. What I'm speaking about now is the fornication as many people today committed, meaning unmarried, and they jump with each other in the bed. That is what I'm speaking about now. So I wrote down sex without laws
and regulations
ends up in chaos.
and destruction. And
And therefore,
therefore
fornication,
is prohibited and is punished severely by Elohim
as it has a direct impact.
on your body, soul, and destiny.
So 1 Corinthians 6:18, it says, flee,
Fornication
for every sin,
that a man does is without the body,
but he that commits fornication.
sins against his own body.
So I wrote down, through sexual immorality,
Diseases have spread, men have become desensitized, and worst of all, many unwanted pregnancies have been aborted, and thus blood has been shed.
this is something that oftentimes we forget. You think, hey, why does Elohim get angry at me? I'm with a lady, I so-called love her, and we jump in the bed. Why does he get angry? I'm a man, she's a woman, it's consensual. I'm not doing any butty homosexual stuff. I'm with a lady that I love, so you say. And then you're like, why is it frowned upon? It is frowned upon because every time you sleep with someone without law and order, you are not aware of the consequences. And the number one reason that Elohim especially frowns upon fornication is because, especially in our Bantu culture, many people, youths, they will sleep with each other because they say they love each other. No marriage, no commitment. And then the lady gets pregnant. The number one reason why Elohim really hates fornication is because of the bloodshed. It's because of the bloodshed. There was this article Shalom shared with me, and it showed me, and he said that amongst the minorities in, was it Amsterdam? The Ghanaians commit the most abortions. And I was shocked. But do you know why? Because basically, from our law's perspective, even in the villages, if you were found sleeping with a damsel that was single, you were single. If you slept with her, you had to marry her. That is found in the Old Testament, and in the villages, it is still so. Marriage was not constituted by two people saying, I love you. No, marriage was constituted by sleeping with each other. You sleep with someone, that lady was single, becomes your wife. The parents will bring their daughter to your house. In the villages, they will say, your boy slept with my daughter, so therefore now we must perform the marriage rites. But what happens now? Many of us sleep with each other, have no intention of marrying the lady. Therefore then, you sleep with her, she gets pregnant. And because we know if we go to our parents will kill us. So we think. So what do many ladies do? Or what do many boys advise the lady? They're like, no, I wasn't ready for this. This will destroy my future. Let's abort. You see? So many of us sleeping around, not married, no intention of marriage. You're young, you sleep around, irresponsible. The lady gets pregnant. You're like, I'm 17, I'm 18, I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21. I'm not ready to have a baby. So what do? You abort. You abort. So that is why it is severely frowned upon by Elohim, because of the killing. Because of the killing. So we will go back to this slide, but let's go to the next slide to show you what I mean and why fornication is frowned upon. So here I have a slide of abortion in the US. Because did you guys know that the number one killer of black people, especially in the West, I'm not even speaking about Africa. Africa, usually it is, there we have babies for fun. I'm especially speaking about Europe, the West. Do you know what the number one killer of our people is? The number one killer of our people is abortion? Abortion is the number one killer of our people. And how do you think that 90% of the abortions take place? It is usually performed because it has been proven statistically. Marriage people do not commit abortion. What's the reason? Who do you think commits abortion? The youths. So Reuben says, behold how fornication, it is dominant in the youth. Because when one is caught by the spirit of fornication, there is no reasoning. And it will eventually destroy you. Because why do you think the youth commit fornication? 16, 17, not intended on marriage. You sleep around, you get pregnant, you go to a clinic, you abort. However, if you guys were married, you get pregnant, you keep the baby, you raise them. If you were a concubine, you get pregnant, it is not aborted because you are under the concubine law. Therefore, the man has to take care of you because you are a bijvrouw. So the children were not aborted because the children of Israel, some of them were children of concubines. But because they were under the law of concubinage, they were saved. There was no need to abort because there was order. Fornication is the unlawful, unregulated sex between men and women that brings about destruction. And the penalty of it all is the killing of souls, abortion. That is why Elohim really hates it. I'm not talking about gays and stuff because what they do is abomination. That is something else. So you look at the graph, abortion amongst blacks and abortion amongst whites. And what do you see? The blue pillars that you see on the left is the abortion of blacks, and on the right is also abortion of blacks. And then on the right, you see the top 5 other things that bring about death. So you will see that amongst the whites and the blacks, the cause of death, the number one cause of death is abortion. It is greater than gang crimes. It is greater than sicknesses like cancer and disease. It is greater than all the causes of death combined. Abortion. Abortion is the number one killing of mankind. And there is a 90% reason that link between abortion and sex out of marriage, wedlock. That is the issue. That is the problem. Why, when you perform that act, you will see the heavens, the angels, Elohim for a season will reject you. Because if you are able to do that, he knows you are very close to killing a soul. You are very close. And unless you have someone to confide into, you will see, because of panic, you are afraid. But gaat mama zeggen? So you will then go and you will kill. And I can assure you, I wouldn't say 90%, 80% of women have done this. Especially those that were already active in sex before marriage. 80% of them, they won't tell you they have done this. They have done this. Why? Because they decided to awaken love before its time. They have decided to awaken passion before its time. So I think read for us, please. One way to measure the impact of race-specific abortion rates
on the size and demographic composition of the U.S. population is to calculate the years of potential life lost from abortion and to compare its its impact to other causes of death. In Pennsylvania in 2018, there were about 61,000 white deaths. These are premature recorded deaths of all deceased persons up to the age of 75, plus abortions from all causes, and 20,000 or 21,000 black deaths.
So basically, in the year 2018, there were 61,000
White deaths.
white deaths, and there were 20,000 black deaths. Now, what you have to understand is the black race is only 15% of the entire American population, where the white race is roughly about 60%, or maybe even 70%. Right? So 61,000 white deaths, and there were 20,000 black deaths. Continue reading.
Abortions were 24% of white deaths
And
and 63% of black deaths.
are you guys reading this? So of the 61%, so of the 61 white deaths in the US in 2018, 23% of those total deaths were by reason of abortion. However, if you look at the black demographic, of the 20,000, or actually, it's actually 21,000 black deaths, people, come on, 62%.
Actually, 63 if you round it up.
63% of all the dying was because of abortion. People, are you reading this? Are you reading this? Are you reading this?
Shocking.
63% of all the deaths of blacks was because we killed our own. We ended life. It is more than the black on black crime. Actually, that is the number one black on black crime. It is more than the gang killings. It is more than the sicknesses. We are aborting. We abort like it's nothing. But we also sleep around, because we blacks have more sex than every other race. We have more sex than any other race. Look at our music. If it's not drugs, it's sex. If it is not drugs, it is sex. If it is not drugs, it is sex. The people are poor. They have nothing to do. What do you think they're doing in the ghettos? They jump around. They bounce around and sleep around. And all of it out of wedlock. So what do you think they do? 17. Hey, Josh, I'm pregnant. You're like, what? You what? No. It's like, you're not gonna trap me. You're not gonna trap. And then she goes to the clinic. And it is even estimated and shown that most of the parents' Planned Parenthood clinics are all in ghettos. And the precursor to all of that is the act of fornication. So now you see why it is frowned upon. And you can take this same case study, remove US, put UK, the same. Look at the Belmer, where the same. Every place where we are, you will see the number one cause of our death will always be abortion. So that's why you see how fornication, it is frowned upon. So Elohim will then punish you, and you will see that through fornication also, many people now get sick. Because many of us know, where does HIV come from? No, sir. Where does HIV come from? Did you know that now they remove the stigma off of HIV? But when HIV first came onto the scene, did you know HIV was called a gay disease? It was literally called a gay disease. And he was like, no, this is unnatural. So I will cause the cells within these people's body to grow unnaturally, because HIV or AIDS is nothing else but the unnatural growing of cells, cancer. Where your cells have to grow normally, it grows out of control. Then you have a tumor, and then you see, so there are many layers to this sexual immorality, and it is killing us. And we all perform with the body. And that is why Shaul said, flee fornication. Every sin you do is outside of the body, but he that commits fornication sins. When you commit abortion, are you not sinning against your own body? First, you have to cut something out. When you commit homosexuality, are you not destroying your own body? Because you are trying to make an exit point an enter point. And so you are dying. When you sleep with beasts, are you not destroying your own body? So you see what Shaul meant when he said that? That statement alone goes very deep. It goes deep. Right? So I wrote, through sexual immorality, diseases have spread, men have become desensitized, and worst of all, many unwanted pregnancies have been aborted, and thus blood has been shed. And thus blood has been shed. Right? So then let's see, because of hoe lang hebben we nog? 20 minutes. My Cappadocius. Okay, now we're going to skip some. Okay, so abortion check. So the dilemma of sexual immorality. Now we are going to the second case. After the abortion slides comes another one.
Mm-hmm. You have it?
Which one?
After the abort, just go to the next slide.
Where's the title?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Clear.
So the problem with our society
is that we have taken the natural use of things, and instead of using it normally, we now use it to our own detriment. Testament of Reuben 4:1.
No, and instead of using it normally, we now abuse it to our own detriment. So the testament of Reuben 4:1, he says,
pay no heed, therefore, my children, to the beauty of women, nor set your mind on their affairs, but walk in singleness of heart.
Now, Song of Solomon 6. So the book of Solomon is a very it is drama. It is a tragedy. Every advice he's giving you is because he has suffered through it all. So Song of Solomon chapter 6 verse 5, he says, turn away
thine eyes from me,
for they
have overcome me.
He was overcome. So he says, turn away your eyes from me, because these eyes of yours, they have taken my soul. Thy hair
is as a flock of goats
that appear
from Gilead.
This guy loved women more than Elohim. He loved women with a passion. That is why he was able to tell you, please do not awaken love before it's time. So case in point, masturbation, which is the abuse
of oneself for pleasure due to an overstimuli of your natural inclination for sex.
Proverbs 18:1, a man
who isolates himself seeks his own desire.
He rages
against all wise judgment.
Matthew 6:22,
the light of the body is the eye.
If the eye
therefore be single,
thy whole body
shall be full of light.
So on the right, masturbate. Listen at what it means. To stimulate
the genital organs of oneself or another.
To achieve
sexual pleasure.
The synonyms of masturbation is
to practice self-abuse.
A what?
Self-abuse.
What does abuse mean?
to use abnormally, I guess.
The abnormal use. So masturbation is to practice self-abuse, self-mishandling. It's abuse, it's self-abuse. Touch yourself, informal, play with yourself, right? And then look at the origin of the word. From Latin,
Masturban, of unknown origin, formerly thought to be derived from manus, hand. or-
no, from manus, as we say in French, les mains. So manus means hand, plus stupirare, which means to defile. So it is literally a composition of the word hand and defile. That is all. That is where the word comes from. From manus and stupirare, hand and defile. Hand and defile. Because every time you do that, you defile yourself. That's where the word comes from. Hence, it is also known as self-abuse. So, hey. Wow. So self-abuse. So I wrote down, due to masturbation,
Many have become desensitized from normal sex and seek out other extremes to fulfill their highs. Porn has been the root cause of many sexual immoral acts like homosexuality, bestiality, and all manner of abomination.
exactly. So in the context also of the dilemma of sexual immorality, you will see that in the endless ocean of addiction or problems comes also the case of masturbation, which is nothing else but to stimulate your genital organs for self-pleasure. So we read, as Reuben says, that through the love of pleasure, sin enters in through this act, right? So the same case as it was with Eve, she only touched when she first saw that it was pleasant. So you see that the problem with our society is, due to a reason of overstimulation, that is why you see fornication, masturbation, sexual immorality is now running rampant. You cannot turn on your television and not see naked people. You cannot turn on your television and not see sex. It is everywhere, all the time. Everywhere, all the time. So because of that, if you are not careful, you will see that it will overcome you. And it will enter into your mind. It will enter into your mind. It will enter into your mind until eventually, if you're not careful, you will perform the act either with a lady or with yourself, because you are fighting against nature. So then I wrote down Belial or Azazel, the deceiver.
Reading from 1 Enoch.
8:1.
And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways.
So you see, you have to understand how the enemy, or how the devil, shall I say, tricks men. The devil cannot trick you without understanding you first. Because in the order of creation, it says, and Elohim gave mankind, what did it say? Ears that it may inquire knowledge, but also something like taste. What did it say?
Hearing by which cometh understanding.
Hearing by which cometh understanding, sight by which cometh desire. You see? So when he appeared to Eve, he only made use of the natural instincts within Eve to seduce her. So when Azazel then stepped on the scene, because he understood that fornication is very close to mankind because of the way Elohim made them, what I will do is I will magnify this spirit, right? I will teach mankind how to use ornaments, makeup to entice themselves, because when the enticement has entered their body, I can chill, because they will begin to devour each other by reason of fornication. So that's why you read, after Azazel taught them the making of bracelets, ornaments, antimony, the beautifying of the eyelids,
and all kinds of costly stones,
it reads, there arose
much godlessness
and they committed
fornication.
So you see, there is a correlation between godlessness, fornication, and the adornments that people wear. There is a direct link. That is why Elohim was so angry at Azazel, because Azazel was crafty. He was like, no, no, no. What you have done, unto you I will ascribe all sin. Because fornication is crazy. And this is what Azazel then taught mankind. So when Azazel did that, the angel then appeared to Reuben, because Reuben also was a victim of fornication. So Reuben was lamenting, praying to the angel, asking him, if what I feel is wrong, why am I thus? Why won't you remove from me the sense of lust or the ability to have sex? So the angel caught Reuben and explained unto him, if I am to remove this sensation from you, you will no longer be human. So this is something you must learn to manage. Manage it. This is something all of us, we must learn to manage it. And then furthermore, the angels, being a teacher, began to teach his son. It says, in your managing, watch this. And then he says, for evil are
women.
Remove evil. Just say for weak. I think that's a better word considering the context. For weak are women,
my children,
and since they have no power
or strength over man,
they use
wiles by outward attractions,
that they may draw him
to themselves. And whom they cannot bewitch by outward attraction, him they overcome by craft. For moreover, concerning them, the angel of Yah told me and taught me that women are overcome by the spirit of fornication more than men, and in their heart they plot against men, and by means of their adornment they deceive first their minds, and by the glance of the eye instill the poison, and then through the accomplished act they take them captive. For a woman cannot force a man openly, but by a harlot's bearing she beguiles him. Flee therefore fornication, my children, and command your wives and your daughters.
Now listen, flee therefore fornication, my children, and tell your wives and your daughters
that they adorn not their heads and faces to deceive the mind,
that they should not decorate their heads and their faces to trick men.
Because every woman who uses these wiles has been reserved for eternal punishment.
Because every woman that doeth these things will be punished. Read.
For thus they allured the watchers who were before the flood. For as they continually beheld them, they lusted after them, and they conceived the act in their mind.
Are you seeing the reality now? Yeah, man, and did. The angel told Reuben, women are overcome by the spirit of fornication more than men. And we men simply respond to what we see. But first they adorn themselves like that. So when you see a woman, she's dressed very sexy, she's like, she's lying. She's just lying, because why would you dress in a way to entice attraction from men and then be like, I do it for myself? She's just lying. So a person that dresses immoral, that lady is already overcome by the spirit of fornication in her mind. But because she's not strong enough to just get you, be like, hey boy, what she then does is she dresses very fine. And then she just walks where you were. And then you see it and you contemplate and meditate. And then you're like, yeah, man. And then you move. Not knowing that Belial or Azazel planned this out. He taught ladies this. That's why you will see the word witchcraft. Nothing means nothing else but the art of women. Because a witch is never a man. Witch is a woman. So the word witchcraft originated from when Azazel taught women and women then taught the world. That is where the word witchcraft originates from. It means the craft of women. So then I took the picture on the right. It says, Catfish Queen says,
I'm so good at makeup that I can make myself look like a whole other person.
People say,
It's witchcraft.
people. This is not us saying, people say, lady, you bent a hex man. Because look at the picture on the left and look at the picture on the right. I'm not saying this is beautiful, but just look at the difference. Just look at the difference. Right? And I go to the next slide. Makeup is a
Lie.
and pure.
Witchcraft.
It's pure. It's pure. It's pure. Just look at the picture. So on the right, bride dumped.
On honeymoon.
Why did he dump her? Well, what do you think?
The contrast.
Because there is a before and after. There is a before and after. Because they would always meet on the streets and she would always look fine. He's like, yes. Ik heb eentje, yes. And then he goes home and then one must take a shower. And then all of a sudden he's like, who are you? Who are you? He's like, no, it's me. He's like, no. He's like, no. This is not who I thought you were. So then you become like Jacob who married in the night. And then on the right, man sues wife over what?
Over makeup.
Why? Because he was like, this woman, she deceived me. And then in the middle, you have the before and you have the after.
What a disaster.
And then the picture, the picture on the bottom, my goodness gracious, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? But this is what they do. And all of that they do, in order for you to do this, the spirit of fornication must have taken your mind. Because you are walking around, you are purposely trying to deceive people. So then you will see people like this, to lie is easy for them. Because they have already lied to themselves. So they are quickly to lie. Many of them also have different personas, schizophrenic. Because you don't know how, but that is why you always have mood swings. You don't understand. How can you not have mood swings? In the morning you look like A, in the evening you look like B. So you look in the mirror, you don't recognize yourself. All these things have psychological impact on mankind. That is why you see women in general, they are emotionally confused. Confused. Not knowing that every time they do this, this is what witchcraft really is. And Azazel deceived them. Belial or Belial deceived them. So them being deceived, now they deceive us. And we succumb to it. And then fornication takes place, godlessness takes place, and we all end up in sin, wickedness. So we are concluding, because of time, the remedy.
In the Testament of Reuben, chapter 6, from 1.
He says, beware.
Therefore, of fornication.
And if you wish to be pure in mind,
Guard your senses from every woman.
guard your senses from every woman.
And command the woman likewise
And
not
also women be commanded not to associate,
with men
that they also may be pure
in mind.
for the constant meetings
Even though the ungodly deed be not wrath,
are to them an irremediable,
disease,
and to us man
a destruction of Belial,
and an eternal.
reproach.
Therefore pay no heed,
My children, to the beauty of women
nor set your mind,
on their affairs,
but walk
in singleness of heart
in the fear,
of Elohim,
and expend labor, spend time
on good works,
and on studying, go
And-
to school, and on your flocks, go to your job until
the master give you a wife,
whom he will.
that ye suffer not as I did.
That is the key. Women don't meddle with men. Men don't meddle with women. Ja, hij is een broeder, we zijn vrienden. Je bent wie's vriend? Vriend van wie? Men and women have never been friends, can never be friends, will never be friends. It's like taking a lion, putting him with a chicken in one cage. How long do you think that relationship will be healthy? One day the lion will be hungry and there is nothing but chicken breast. And if you give a lion chicken breast, have you seen what you do with chicken breast from KFC? Have you seen what you do with KFC when you're hungry? So women and friends have never been friends, will never be friends, and are not friends. If you want to be a friend and you are a woman, be friends with women. And even women, they aren't even friends with themselves. Always beef. Beef. If you are a man, you want to have friends, call your oudste broer, call your niffle, ga naar je oom, chill with brothers. Because the constant meetings are dangerous. But also, when it comes to you, things like watching TV and stuff, what we don't, maybe TV in itself is a deadly topic that we should also maybe deal with, because what TV has done, no, we will deal with that when we will touch on I think multiversal stuff. So that is misschien wat anders. But because of time, just go to the conclusion. Question.
When the previous verse in Testament of Reuben 6, verse 1 says, for constant meetings, even though the ungodly deed be not wrath, are to them an irremediable disease, and to us a destruction of Belial. What is the meaning of irremediable disease?
Irremediable means uncurable, because it comes from the word remedy. Remedy means to cure. Irremediable simply means uncurable. Why do they say that? It's because women can attach very quickly. They're not like us. That is why women can also not have more than one man. It will destroy their psyche. We men, on the other hand, can have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we will still be able to manage. Because you can have more more wives, for example, and yet you take care of all the children. Men, we can, hoe noemen we dat ook alweer? Compartmentalize. Ja, dat kunnen we doen. We are able to look at this is A, this is B, this is C, and we make a distinction without any problem. That is why sometimes it's easy for us to remain on topic. Where you say we will talk about topic A, we will talk about topic A because we can shut off everything. Women cannot stay on topic. It's their nature. They have to bring in everything. You're like, what? That's how they reason. So, irremediable, because we can have a meeting with you 5-10 minutes, and when we're gone, we're gone. We don't even think of you. Women attach very quickly, right? That's what the Bible said, and her desire shall be towards her husband. They attach quickly. So, constant meetings with them, voordat je het weet, eentje krijgt gevoelens. En you're like, what? You're like, ja, want, ja, en ik ga die broeder eten en ja, had altijd mijn nasi en dan nu opeens gaat hij met de andere dame. En ik denk van, what? But that's how women are. Ze wordt gewoon para van, ja, en die broeder, hij bracht me altijd naar huis en nu opeens hij met de andere dame. What? But this is what they do. So that's the answer. That was a sister, eh? Yeah, so that's the answer. So we are concluding Romans
12 from 1.
I beseech you,
Therefore, brethren, by the mercy of Elohim, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto Elohim, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
So Shaul is saying, understanding all these mysteries, I beseech you, when you pray, present your bodies unto Elohim as a sacrifice. And tell him, for the sake of our soul, you rejected our body. Nevertheless, we come before thee and we present this body unto you, that you may have compassion upon us and restore us, that we may live a life that is worthy and acceptable in thy sight. Because even though this body was rejected by thee, men cannot operate in this world without the body. Therefore, may you use us as vessels. Deliver us from any manner of concupiscence, wicked desire, so that this temple may be used for your glory. These are the type of prayers you have to dedicate time on and pray unto him for. Just like Shaul is saying. And the next verse, Philippians 4:8.
Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true.
So when it comes to you and you're engaging with this world, be it the music you listen to. And I'm not simply talking about gospel music. Many people are like, hey, ik kwam bij je langs. Waarom luister je reggae? I'm like, hoe bedoel je? Yeah, je luistert reggae. So, some people are so mad that you can listen to Kirk Franklin, or what's the guy's name, Donnie McClurkin. We fall down and get up. And these crazy Americans and their unspiritual songs. You can listen to them, but when you are listening to Redemption Song by Bob Marley, when you listen to some songs by Shizla Kalonji, they're like, great, isn't it? It's madness. It's madness. Any song that edifies you, listen. Listen. Don't believe the gospel Kool-Aid. It's a lie. Someone like Dietrich Hedon. So whatsoever things are true.
Whatsoever things are honest.
Whatsoever things are honest.
Whatsoever things are just. Whatsoever things are pure. Whatsoever things are lovely. Whatsoever things are of good report.
If there be any edification, if there be any virtue,
And if there be any praise, think on these things.
So we conclude with that. Thank you very much for your time. Shalom, shalom, shalom.
All right, guys. So let's settle down some. We need you to sing this song with us. Listen up, listen up.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born, and the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see